Paper 7, Literatures of India in Introduction, Part 2, Session number 43, Themes of the Play. We'll be taking up a couple of themes now, one of which is patriarchy. Patriarchy can be defined as a social system in which the male holds primary power and predominance in roles of political leadership, moral authority, social privilege, and control of property. In the domain of the family, the father or father figure holds authority over women and children. This issue of patriarchy cannot be separated from the structure of Indian society. Until the 1970s, the roles of men and women were fairly well defined. However, recent years have witnessed the line between male and female roles becoming blurred, and the domain of femininity has expanded to include social and professional fields. The changing trends are reflected in men and women taking up unconventional work as pilots and astronauts, while men are honing their skills as chefs, fashion designers, and dancers. Patriarchy as a sub-theme has been highlighted in the story to be a component that is inseparable from society. The system of patriarchy runs on hierarchy. The male controls the power relations of the genders where men and women are unequal, and the female the ground of the system. This unjust power relation, where a man enjoys complete authority over the lives of women associated with him, strengthened by gender stereotypes imposed by the patriarchal culture in society. In the play, Amritlal serves as the agent of patriarchy, where he possesses and enjoys an authority over his son and daughter in law unquestionably. He assumes that being the eldest male, he is the head of the family. Also, as he is one who earns the bread and butter, he consequently appoints himself as the sole decision maker for the whole of the family. He is a reformist and a modern person for the country, but unfortunately conservative and prudish for his own family. He took part in the freedom struggle of India, but ironically restrains his son from his freedom of choice. Amritlal curbs Jaira's wish to become a professional Bharatanatyam dancer and enforces him not to pursue his passion, as it is not a masculine trait to be a dancer in his opinion. Moreover, dance couldn't earn him much money, and being a man, one has to financially support his family, being the sole bread earner as per the norms of the society. There is also an underlying indication that Jaira's dancing concerns Amritlal of his sexual orientation, as he hints the Guruji who teaches Jairaj and Ratna Bharatanatyam to be homosexual. In an argument with Jairaj, Amritlal says, I object to the people you're associating with. Your Guru. What kind of family is he from? Why does he wear his hair so long? I have never seen men with long hair. I meant normal men. Normal men do not have long hair. And what about the way he walks? Later in a sequence, he even loses his temper when he told by Ratna about the desire of his son to grow his hair long as suggested by Guruji to enhance his abhinaya, expressive techniques used in Indian classical dance forms. saying out loud, "Tell him, if he grows his hair even an inch longer, I will shave his head and throw him on the road." Thus, Amritlal wanted his son to opt for a career path that would bring him money and, more importantly, respect as a man, instead of opting for something of lower stature that could rip him of his self esteem. He considered his own son to be ashamed, judging him on his idea of masculinity, in which Jairaj was a misfit. "Well, most boys are interested in cricket. My son is interested in dance," I thought. "I didn't realize this interest of yours would turn into an obsession." Amrit Lal to Jairaj. One more theme of the play, which I'll be talking now, is the world of art. If the play is about art, it's not about the aesthetics of the craft, rather about the world of art populated with artists and the life they live and the standard they live by, and about the merging of borders and clash between the normal world and that of art. What we are faced with is the culture policing initiated by the hitherto patriarchy in two time frames. In lately independent India, while art gets marginalized by zeal to reclaim the core Indian identity, in the 90s, the consumerism replaces its predecessors. Very carefully, Dattani introduces us to the world in the company of a character who is out and out a citizen of the ordinary social life. Very carefully, Dattani introduces us to the world in the company of a character who is out and out a citizen of the ordinary social life and lives by the socio-ethical standard of upper middle class people of modern urban India. Vishwas, Vishwas, the future husband of Lata. He accompanies his fiancée to their house to meet Lata's parents, both for an introduction and approval. Quite contrary to the expected anxious waiting of the bride's family, Vishwas stumbles onto both the physical absence and psychic unconcern. They are not at home. Well, the visit was prearranged with their prior knowledge and consent and a promise to their daughter. Lata divines the cause to be an emergency, which strikes Vishwas with a note of improbability. It's beyond the edge of his knowledge that the performance is not merely about the practice and acquiring the skill for stage performance. Rather, it is the arrangement of the whole thing which requires much stress, strain, and strategy. Really surprised, he puts it in his own way. Only doctors and firemen go out on emergencies. Dancers stay at home till it's showtime. They also stay at home when they have invited their future son in law to their house. All this is, of course, said in a very light and rather good humor manner, but the observation brings out the basic difference between the two worlds, which bears such great impact on the life of the dancer couple and gains such serious and wide dimension in the course of the play. Another striking feature of this world is the priority accorded to the various aspects of life which varies from the normal goings on. Lata puts in a half serious manner. Actually, they couldn't care less who are what are you are, as long as you let me dance. They can even overlook the threat that their son in law may whisk their daughter away to the harem of an Arab sheikh if she is able to continue her dance there because dance is the very identity and staff of their existence. In answer to Vishwa's wide eyed astonishment, Lata only sums it all up by saying, I told you they are different. She leads Vishwas to the dancing hall, and he fails obviously to gauge Lata's sensitiveness and deep attachment to the art and all that is associated with it. He cannot feel the thrill she feels touching the dance bell which her father wore for her first performance. I get goosebumps every time I touch them and can only hear and not feel the vibration, the special atmosphere of the room. Lata says. With the arrival of the elderly Parekh couple, amidst Vishwa's unaware antique wrapping the antique shawl, the difference in standards and prioritization becomes all the more apparent. Vishwas gets extremely embarrassed and apologizes, but the only response he gets is a command from Jairaj to put the shawl back and Ratna's offering to fold it neatly and request to sit. Completely ignoring his presence, they engross in the crisis they never faced in their whole life. Their helplessness in the face of the crisis makes Vishwas uneasy for being identified as a problem, but is assured by his future father in law that he is not sufficiently known by them to be qualified as a problem. In a flash, a night as Moscow reveals another facade of their world as the curtain is lifted. At 3 o'clock in the morning, Ratna comes to the corridor, apparently in order to spy upon Jairaj's activity. Jairaj keeps drinking vodka along with another troop, and Seshadri sneaks into Chandrakala's room. Some questions remain unanswered as to why Ratna was in the corridor in such an hour of night and how Jairaj could identify the very night she is speaking about so quickly. The problem, which is of paramount importance to the dancer couple, is as follows. The Mridangam player, Srinivasa, has broken his leg, stripping over his dhoti that Lata cannot perform without the Mridangam, and they cannot ask Sheshadri as a substitute since he practices with Chandrakala and also maintains an illicit relation with her, who is a rival of Lata. Sabotage is apprehended. Hence, if sometimes Ratna contemplates to ask for Sheshadri, she quickly changes her mind, taking a lesson from the previous incident of Lanini's predicament. The dancer parents, especially Ratna, thinks that their daughter's life is ruined and she is destined to become an average human being. If she can't dance, what else can she be? We find an absolute identification of the artist with their passion and art. They overlook the presence of their future son in law. How other concerns reside in the margin of the territory of an artist's consciousness become evident when Jairaj gives his consent to the marriage between Vishwas and Lata based on Vishwas' meager account of himself. Ratna shows her concern only to the extent of knowing whether he is well off and would allow Lata to dance after a marriage. Though unable to gauge the depth of the problem, Vishwa shows enough focus as to bring the Parekh couple back to the concern from staying away with the lifestyle of Sheshadri. He also shows tolerance, courtesy, and common sense as to leave the place for the time being without spite, relieving them of his present since he is not of any help. But at times, both worlds meet as the value system of one gets applied to the other. Ratna reiterates and follows the criterion of the so-called mainstream world when she codifies Jairaj as the spineless boy who ceased to be a man for her from the day he returned to the house of Amritlal and accepted his incapability to support his family by earning money. The intrusion of the values of the other world vitiates the personal life of the dancer couple who, after 40 years of marriage, can only be free and honest with each other if they can drink together. Life only makes sense to the husband when she is upset and loses control over the expression of her feelings. We meet them for moments at night before they go to sleep. As usual, they try to pretend to each other. Jairaj feigns to give Vishwas company in drinks, while Ratna pretends not to know where the bottles are kept hidden. Confession of the truth reveals one is drunk and the other knows the whereabouts of the bottles and takes it out to top them with water and put them back in place. They confess and drink together, decide to ask Chandrakala to lend Sheshadri. Ratna is squared, but Jairaj can't forget the emasculated image of himself which his wife and perhaps himself held so far now. He wants an explanation whether it was more manly to let his wife sleep with her own uncle than to return to his father's house. Ratna now really feels weak and appeals not to bring the subject as promised by her husband. For moments, the veil is lifted. Ratna sincerely wishes to undo some part of their life. We could start again. Both of them realize too many sacrifices have to be made, and all these led to nothing worthy. It was too great a price to pay, Jai. A sense of depravity is unmistakable since, after the lifelong pursuit of the art form, the artists find that it has brought them nowhere. In answer to Jaira's question, why she is planning the same frustrating life for their daughter, Ratna first forwards the reason that Lata's success will make all their travails worthy and then builds her hope on the times being changed as well as Lata's having parents to push her forward. She gets lost in her dream of Lata's success, which is her own too. Since Lata has talent, her parents' experience, her mother's skill of buttering up the foreign ministers to arrange foreign tour, and journalist C.V. Suri to have reviews. The artist world gets lost in the uncertainty of consumerism. The world of art suffered marginalization in various stages in Indian history, but the neo-colonial forces tend to obliterate and subjugate an identity by constructing a myth of monolithic Indianness. Performed by Devadasis, female slaves of the Hindu deity in the temples of the southern India. The dance was an art offering to temple deities and was considered as the best form of prayer. Symbolically married to the god, the Devadasis were prohibited to marry any mortal man. However, in course of time, their services became bound to the corrupt priests and other rituals functionaries. and they were degraded into prostitutes by the convenient duplicity of religious sanction. Their art is not recognized, the skill is not respected, and the hegemony of Indian society subsumes and authorizes the cultural practice within its grand narrative. The old sexually inactive Devadasis were reduced to beggars. The 75 and dying Channayamma, the oldest living exponent of the Mysore school, the only link with the old school, earns her living by selling flowers on temple steps. The monolithic state, unable to interrogate the mode of practice of patriarchy, perpetuates it by the program of rehabilitation. Instead of promoting, destigmatizing, and preserving the art, which could be a part of the process of reclaiming the identity of multicultural India, the monopolizing leaders triggered off the mission of reforming the practitioners and thus permanently affiliating their status as prostitutes. Even during a casual reading of the play, especially confronting the character of Amrit Lal, the state of India emerges as gendered, perhaps a version crafted by man. Independence is exposed to be a mere transfer of power from one colonial authority to another. The tries to reduce the rich variety of Indian culture into a monolithic discourse of consumption. Amritla says, our priority is to eradicate certain unwanted and ugly practices which are a shame to our country. I will not have our temples turned into brothels. Nobody is running down your art. It's the people who perform it, and for what reason? That we are trying to. The abolition of the Devadasis Convention is recoded as oppression and subjugation of an ideology. The handling of public opinion after Lata's performance by Ratna brings out the insurgency of consumerism in the world of art. Ratna's conversation with Mr. Gowda over the telephone throws light on the issue from multiple corners. She expresses extreme gratitude for being called by him on behalf of Lata, who must be thrilled by both the present of flowers from him and the call, not because he is a minister, but because he is so genuinely knowledgeable about dance and also known to be so critical. He deserves special thanks since he wasted so much time remembering Lata even after being so busy organizing the Indian festival in Canada. He is given the information of Lata, having received a standing ovation from the President of India after completing the Tilana, and is offered any kind of help the minister needs from Ratna herself and Jairaj in his enterprise, since they are now like a family. At this point, Jairaj, however, cautions her for overdoing her part and making herself obvious. But Ratna's shock comes in the form of hearing the name of Chandrakala on the selection committee. Even after great effort, she can't hide her jealousy properly and acquiesces to his observation on the latter's being a good dancer with the twist 20 years ago. Of course, she tries to patch up by agreeing formally on Chandrakala's Devi's impartiality, but she has already made herself too obvious. As Indrani Ghosh rightly observes, there is no actual performance of the Bharatanatyam by any of the actors, although it is in the context in which the drama unfolds. The musicians and teachers remain unseen, their presence suggested by the mimetic actions of the main protagonist taken in a tray of coffee cups commenting on the musician's reactions, bidding goodbye with folding hands, all of which take place off stage. Such omission may be taken as deliberate, indicating the virtual loss of the value of the art itself in its transformation into commodity. Thank you.